Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, joined by Riley Fessler this morning. How are you, Riley?
Not too bad.
Not too bad. And how about you, Minna?
Wishing the rain would go away, but otherwise also not too
I don't
bad.
think it's going to go away. I think this one of the big stories that we're not actually going to go into in great detail here is this hurricane is not only going to hit Florida and pretty hard, Hurricane Helene, I think, but it's then going to kind of take a weird turn and go up the middle of the U.S. Could hit Virginia, could get us a lot of rain here.
Mm.
So that's a big story to watch, particularly if you are in Florida or thereabouts today. Where do you want to start, guys? What do you want to start with?
How about let's start with Israel has rejected calls for a ceasefire with Hezbollah, defying international allies such as the United States, which has proposed a 3-week truce to allow for diplomacy and avert a wider war. Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz emphasized that Israel would continue military operations against Hezbollah, a group backed by Iran, until victory. This rejection comes amid escalating violence, with Israel launching its heaviest airstrike against Lebanon since 2006 and Hezbollah firing missiles back into Israel. Despite these developments, hopes for a ceasefire remain slim, and tensions between the two sides could continue to escalate, with fears of a potential Israeli ground offensive.
Yeah, I mean it's not just uh, uh, you know some countries are supporting the idea of a ceasefire. It's every major country in the West and every major country virtually in the region saying, look, let's stop this. Let's take 3 weeks. Let's try and find a solution here and keep it from escalating. But as you note, this morning, the Netanyahu administration has said no to that. I think talks are going to go on, all day and beyond, because an expanding war in Lebanon could have a very, very big cost. And even more than Gaza, is certainly likely or capable of triggering a regional conflict, which could bring in other Iranian proxies, other countries in the region. And that, of course, could be catastrophic for the world in a lot of respects. So um, I would anticipate very, very intense diplomacy. That hasn't worked terribly well with the Israelis over the course of the past year, or with some of the people they're fighting, to be fair. But right now, I think the bulk of the weight is on the Israeli administration regarding a ceasefire in the north, and you know the pressure is to make it start sooner rather than later. Right?
New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury, marking a significant development following weeks of investigations into his administration. The charges, which remain sealed, follow a series of searches, subpoenas, and resignations of top city officials, thrusting the city's government into turmoil. Adams denies the allegations, calling them baseless and vowing to remain in office. The investigations reportedly center around campaign donations and potential ties to foreign governments, including Turkey. This indictment is unprecedented for a sitting New York City mayor and has led to widespread calls for his resignation.
Yeah, he should resign. The government is completely dysfunctional at this point. Several of its top officials have resigned because they're under investigation. And I'll just tell you a little anecdote. When he was not even mayor yet, I was talking to some senior people in the orbit of the New York City government who are watching new, Adams appointees, how they were made, what they were doing, what kind of deals they were striking early. And the people said to me, and this was more than one person, said, this is going to end in tears. This guy's going to end up being indicted. Adams is the wrong guy for this job. I agree. Yesterday, AOC called for his resignation. I think those calls will grow stronger. particularly starting later today when this indictment is unsealed and we see exactly what he is being charged with. He's defiant. That's kind of on brand for him. But yeah, ultimately, he's got to go. He has been a terrible mayor, and it appears a corrupt mayor. Minna.
Congress passed a bipartisan funding bill to avoid a government shutdown next week, removing a Trump-backed proposal for proof of citizenship to register to vote. The Senate approved the measure 7818, funding the government at current levels through December 20th and setting up another spending debate after the elections. House Speaker Mike Johnson emphasized the need to avoid a shutdown close to Election Day, while Trump expressed frustration over the situation, inciting on the importance of election integrity. The bill also allocates additional funding for the Secret Service and aims to foster bipartisan cooperation moving forward.
Yeah, this is just so much bullshit. I don't even know why people in the rest of the world listen to it. There was never going to be a government shutdown 3 or 4 weeks before an election. This was just posturing and nonsense and performative. And if we had a decent Speaker of the House, it never would have come to this. But we don't. He's a little creep. And if you want more on that, see how he defended a particularly racist member of his caucus yesterday after this guy made repulsive assertions about Haitians. But in any event, this is the weather on Capitol Hill. These things, these storms sort of boil up and then they blow over. And this one we can put in the rearview mirror and wait until the next one happens. But fortunately, the next one probably won't happen until after the election. And who knows? There could be a switch in the leadership and they might actually become more sensible. I know.
We can hope.
Yeah, we can hope. Not all of them. Anyway, well, go on.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has hinted at potential changes to Russia's nuclear doctrine, stating that an attack on Russia by a non-nuclear state backed by a nuclear-armed nation would be considered a joint attack. Putin's comments follow growing tensions as Ukraine pushes into Russian territory, while Ukraine's leadership dismisses this as nuclear blackmail aimed at deterring Western support. Putin also highlighted the possibility of using nuclear weapons in response to missile or drone strikes on Moscow. This signals a shift in Russia's nuclear posture, raising concerns in the West and prompting calls for caution from allies like China.
Saber rattling. I mean, if a country has 6,000 nuclear warheads, you've got to take this kind of thing seriously. But having said that, does this mean something substantive in the near term, or is this just Putin frustrated that countries are saying, all his nuclear threats early in the Ukraine war amounted to nothing? He doesn't have any real red lines. I think it's the latter. But obviously, one needs to take this kind of thing seriously. Because particularly if pushed, it's always an option that the Russians have.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz expressed frustration.
Boo. Oh, sorry. Go on.
After Senator Cory Booker objected to his bipartisan bill, the Take It Down Act, which aims to combat AI-generated revenge porn. Cruz accused Booker of making a politically motivated move to deny him a legislative victory during his tough re-election campaign. The bill, which seeks to criticize non-consensual intimate imagery and requires tech companies to swiftly remove such content, has previously received bipartisan support. In response, Booker's spokespersons accused Cruz of staging the confrontation for political gain rather than pursuing genuine cooperation on the issue.
Oh my God, politicians playing politics? I can't believe it. Um, Look, Cruz is odious. The race is close. It's in the margin of error. His opponent, Colin Allred, member of Congress, former NFL player, lawyer, is excellent. Cruz could lose, just depending on whatever the prevailing sort of uh, conditions are as we get towards the end of this campaign, and depriving him of a legislative victory doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. On the other hand, um, I don't think that even passing this bill would have much of an effect on most people, its merits aside. But who knows? There may be some happy surprises on election day. There were a couple polls this morning of battleground states, particularly another one of those downer polls from the New York Times in Siena, that are got to remind people that this is very close and no outcome is assured. But we can hope that we do the right thing at the top of the ticket, and then we get some positive change up and down it. Anyway, that's the kind of thing we'll be watching for today. Also watching this big storm. Hope all of you out there stay safe and dry, and join us for our podcast. If you didn't catch the one, the Deep State Radio podcast yesterday, on some of the bigger issues going on in the world, you should. It was a really, really good one. And we've got a really interesting one coming up later today on the media and this campaign, which is a big story because it's not really playing out the way that it always has in the past. In any event, that's what we're here for, and hopefully that's what you will be here for. Until then, thank you, Riley. Thank you, Minna. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.